college students, what is the dumbest thing you've heard a fellow student say? When I first moved into a house off campus, I shared the top floor with a surprisingly slow-witted guy. He was quiet and had an overnight job, so I really only saw him when we were all drinking or hosting a party over Christmas. An old friend was hard up for cash, so I bought his childhood NES and game collection, probably overpaying since half my purpose was to help this guy out. It was a hit on our tiny TV. Most afternoons, a few people would be gathered around for some Tecmo Bowl or RC Pro-Am. Over spring break when I had the place to myself, I beat the original Metroid. Good times. Then, near the end of the semester, just before dawn in the haze after a huge party, some strangers walk in and start hauling off our TV, stereo, etc. My upstairs floormate confronts them, and one of these shady intruders says, "We're with the electronics repair service. We'll have these back to you right away." This guy proceeds to hold the door and help them with our old VCR. Most of the house had theater majors, so studying particular performances was legitimate homework, and then my NES. They even got the cartridges, but when they started hauling out CDs he finally became suspicious. The specific dumbest thing regarding strangers who show up 5 AM and start hauling off the most valuable items from our front room was, they told me they were the electronics repair crew, so I helped them get everything out to their van. We had someone else living in that room the following year. I mean, these people wouldn't scam people like that if no one fell for it once in a while. I was assigned a 2-person group project and a partner. She tells me straight up, "I'm too busy for this, you can do it." Tell her that's not how it works. She'll have to do her share. She doesn't care or respond to any further email on it, so I do all the work. Hand it in with a cover letter, explaining she did nothing. I get 90%, she gets 0%. In front of the whole class she says, "Gangler but is a piece of crap and gave me 0 on this assignment. It's not fair, and he's a freaking butthole." Professor: "Oh, well, he informed me you didn't do any of the work on the project. Was this not the case?" Girl: "That's not how IT works. A group project means we all get the same mark, no matter how much work you do. IT means one person gets a break from the assignment." Professor: "Nope, that's not how that works. I love people who fight really hard when they are clearly in the wrong. It's just an amazing sight, like a bald eagle doing trig on an abacus. Beautiful." When they abort the baby, does it die? But you can't OD on alcohol, you just digest it. Both overheard from different people during an upper division medical ethics class. In an ethics class, a girl decked out in a horrible clash of designer name brands on every article of clothing and personal possession raised her hand and said, "The difference between rich people and poor people is that rich people know how to say thank you." We were discussing the differences between wealthy and poverty level treatment in a courtroom. Also, in a final exam for a criminal procedure class, there was a typo. I forget what it said, but it was supposed to say mortal as in mortal wound. Everyone pretty much made out what it was supposed to say through the context of the sentence, except this one girl. She went up to ask the teacher what the misspelled word meant and he announced to the class the correct spelling. She stood there and asked him what mortal meant. He just looked at her and said in the dead silence of a final exam, "You're 4th year criminal justice major in a criminal procedure class. I am not going to explain to you what a mortal wound is." I thought Ben Franklin invented lightning. This was said during a class on Western civilization. What a dong. Who knows how many lives lost to brush fires he's responsible for. During an MBA marketing class, we had group projects where we basically had a set of data given to us to come up with a marketing plan. One group took the customer data and proudly averaged all of the customers' zip codes to get the geographical center of their customer base. Later in the professor's office, they argued when the prof told them it didn't work that way. The team leader said, "Well, that's just your opinion," and stomped out. Actually, a week ago, we had just gotten out of our final exam for the year, and this girl is making her way to the door. Before she even reaches it, she says to her friend, "Yeah, I had to copy a few parts of my book to reach the word count." You ever hear a record scratch in real life, and that 90s meme following it? That pretty much happened. The teacher called the girl up to the front and silently, without a word began to go into the paper logs and saw that Turnitin had a 75% plagiarism rate. It was, well, for her, it probably sucked but for the rest of us, golden city of how do you frick up this bad. I had a friend ask me if the IRS was going to come after him since he did not pay his internet bill for 3 months. Tell him yes. It was in a match class when a teacher was trying to get a girl to understand that 1/3 is larger than 1/4, but she wasn't having any of it. According to her, 1/4 was larger because there are 4 1/4s to make a whole and only 3 1/3s to make 1 2. So there are more 1/4s. More is larger. Therefore 1/4 is larger. Even when the teacher tore a piece of paper in 3 and another in 4, wrote 1/3 and 1/4 on the corresponding papers, threw everything away but 1 1/3 and 1 1/4 and asked her which is larger, she still went for the 1/4. Teacher sat down, didn't say anything for a minute and then continued class. That was the first time I'd ever witnessed someone giving up on a person like that. I seem to remember A&W advertised 1/3 pound burgers in comparison to the, I think, McDonald's 1/4 pound burgers for the same price, but due to people thinking a 1/3 was smaller no one bought them. Professor here. Student was upset that I didn't send him an email reminding him homework was due. I apologized and asked if there was anything else I could do for him. Maybe his laundry, grocery shopping, etc. He stormed out of the classroom. Other students laughed. My favorite has got to be when a student read World War II as World War XI. And Kim Jong-il, commonly known as the father of Kim Jong, you know. 2 girls, business majors, very stereotype. Why? Around 2010, we should start a website where anyone can sign up and simply pay a fee to charge their laptops over the internet. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. No mention of peripherals, so I can only assume the website hacks into the router you're connected to, turns it into a Tesla coil, and arcs a surge of electricity from the device to your laptop battery. One girl asked if she went $300 over her credit limit, if she would have to pay it back. No, it's free money. First week of college I watched this kid cut in line get confronted by his peers. His response was, as far as I'm concerned I'm more attractive than you. No, there's 2 different types of turkeys, one for white meat, one for dark. Civil rights movement was so focused avoiding jive turkeys that actual turkeys got left behind. I went to a college that accepts a lot of foreign students from Japan and China. I couldn't keep track of how many times I heard you from Asia? No, they're Japanese. The poor student would normally respond with Japan, China, but this one guy just stared blankly at them. The one student turned to his friend, I don't think he speaks English. The Asian student, in clear English, said, I'm from Toronto, you freaking idiot. It was great. One time in class a girl was doing a presentation where she described a man from Uganda as African American and didn't understand why that wasn't right. One time I used the term black when talking about someone from Kenya and my sister-in-law corrected me that I should say African American. The best part is that we live in Europe and the person I was talking moved here about 3 years ago from Kenya and he has never even visited the US. Man, you have such a big computer. That thing's gotta take up 6 Wi-Fis. He isn't Asian, he's from Japan. In a literature class, girl, so, all those Greek gods and goddesses, what happened to them? Professor, confused, you mean in the story? Girl, no, like, what happened to them? Professor, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Girl, like, why are they not around anymore? Did they all die? The whole class was just a stunned silence. They live above the Empire State Building. Duh. Student, do rocks have DNA? Prof, no, rocks are not living. Student, then how do they reproduce? How is there not only just one rock? This was a 300 level genetics class. Maybe go tell him to sit in on a geology class. We were playing some drinking game. Someone correctly answers a question with Afghanistan. This girl laughs out loud and goes, Afghanistan isn't a country. We all turned at once and laughed at her. How many pages do I need to write for the 5-page paper? A roommate was leaving early in the morning with his girlfriend. Where ya going? My girlfriend and I are going to watch the sun rise over the ocean. Chuckle. Okay, have fun. So for clarification, this is the West Coast we are talking about. The guy comes back later. You knew it wasn't going to rise over the ocean, didn't you? Maybe. He pauses. Well, which days does it rise over the ocean? Trying not to laugh. Try tomorrow. In my boyfriend's speech communication class, a guy got up to give his speech. It was obvious he didn't have one prepared. He started with, alright, ladies, raise your hand if you are single, so the reason you ladies are single is you need to lower your standards. He then called a super athletic, good looking classmate to the front and said, you keep going for these guys when you should be going for, and proceeds to call the super obese guy in the class to the front. I can't make this crap up. Similar thing happened in my communication class. They were easy to pass speeches. Like people were passing with minute-long gaps between saying anything in the 3 minutes long speeches. Only one person failed by bringing up how gay marriage should be illegal because it causes people to make love to animals. She didn't understand why the lecturer was trying to cut it short. I don't know why I thought this was so funny, but a kid on my floor needed to borrow a screwdriver to undo his window and couldn't get it to unscrew while saying to himself, lefty tighty righty loosey. In Germany we say, so lang das Deutsch Reich bestet, Word die Schraube nach rechts gedreht, which means, as long as the German Reich exists, the screw will be turned to the right. It's politically not correct but easy to remember. A friend of mine was taking apart a printer in the IT lab and another friend turned to see him opening it up and yelled, don't drink the ink, completely seriously, because that's how dumb he thought the first friend was, that he would immediately drink printer ink if given a chance. This week in Kevin Goes to College. The topic of fellatio came up while the professor stepped out. After a good 12 minutes of talking about technique, preferences, past experiences, a male student finally says, I'll never see M in a girl's mouth though. I wouldn't want to get her pregnant. He was absolutely serious. While my then girlfriend was at uni, she lived with an alcoholic. To try and stop him from drinking, they got him hooked on smoking in an effort to change his addiction. Her words to me were, he had an alcohol problem so we got him smoking. Now he's an alcoholic that smokes. Let me get pregnant so I can cure our lovemaking problems. I once had to tell another student, a grown but adult, that Canada does indeed stretch from sea to sea, and we don't live in the freaking hills. This is at a regular but community college in California. She said she thought it was an East Coast thing. Canada. She thought that freaking Canada was only a thing on the East Coast of the North American continent. A friend of mine moved into a new place at the start of his second year and threw a big house party to celebrate. It was great. It was wild. Fun was had. While nothing got broken, his living room got messed up quite a bit. Pillows all over the place. Chair tipped over. I think someone made a fort out of pizza boxes. Anyway, I go round this dude's house about 5 months later, and the living room is largely in the same state I last saw it in at that party. In fact, so was lots of the house. It had barely been cleaned. Mold was on a ton of their dishes, and there was a mushroom growing out of the wall in the bathroom. I asked him why the heck hadn't they tidied any of it up, and he said, we figured we'd have another party again soon, so why bother cleaning up? 6 of my guy friends rented a place together during school. Their place was so filthy that when I was over I would walk across the street to use the bathroom. A gas station bathroom. Teacher, name a country beginning with E. Classmate, euthanasia. For reference, I live in England. Professor was demonstrating the need for quality checks. Asked several students to measure a piece of paper that was normal, printer paper sized. One kid was supposed to measure in inches, another was supposed to measure in centimeters. Kid who measured in centimeters said the paper was 108 centimeters long. Now this is regular paper, 1 foot long on its longest day. This fellow did not even think twice before saying it was over a meter long. Nobody even picked up on this until it was remeasured for a quality check. Mind blowing. That turned out to be a great demonstration for why we need quality control. I love breast cancer because it makes everything pink. This one is the absolute dumbest I've read so far. The other day I heard a girl giving a speech over nicotine addiction. This was supposed to be informative and have credible sources. I kid you not, I do not believe that cigarettes are addictive. I tried them once. I am not addicted. I had to try very hard to not start laughing. A credible source was a requirement for this assignment. But professor, I am a credible source. Me. What's your major? Guy. It was aerospace engineering. Me. Whoa. That's cool, but what do you mean was? Guy. I'm on academic probation with the university because my GPA is too low. So I'm switching majors. Me. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. What are you switching to? Guy. Religious studies. I can get a job as a pastor. Me. Alright. So you are big into church? Guy. No. I rarely go, but I can worry about that later. Oh my god. This is the perfect example of what happens when you tell teenagers that everybody needs to go to college. Had a class about crime and physical assault. Lecturer was going over a study that stated that on average, men were physically stronger than women. Girl raised her hand and said that's chauvinistic, citing that women bodybuilders and crap exist. We had done 3 years of stats by that point. How she did not know the difference between averages, outliers or distributions was beyond me. The poor lecturer looked dumbfounded. Canada passed a law that changed the status of some of the legalities around prostitution, and a girl in my class asked the professor before class, now that prostitution is legal, should I put it on my resume? The collective facepalm was heard around campus. A girl in my English class wrote that legalizing gay marriage will create 800 million new jobs in the United States. A TAFE or calculus at a UC did a few examples of use substitution before the professor taught it in class. Several students were amazed and asked, "Dude, did you invent use substitution? If fish don't have lungs, how do they breathe?" I'm a second-year biology student. They find air bubbles before the scary music gets too intense. Before class started, a few of us were talking about various states we had been to. One mentioned Alaska being attached to Canada. This prompted a girl to chime in that Alaska is an island. She apparently thought that Alaska and Hawaii were located at the southwest corner of the US like they are portrayed in the maps that just show the 50 states. We shouldn't have to vaccinate men for HPV because it doesn't hurt them. I actually had this argument with a peer and a professor. They still didn't understand it in the end. We are all scientists. If you cheat on your girl once a month for a year, you're still 97% faithful. Math checks out. 1. At least 4 students in my class listed Jesus' sin as a tenet of Eastern Orthodoxy in their papers. They plagiarized each other. 2. Everybody knows that black caucuses are bigger than white caucuses. That was an entertaining US Gov class. That second one is something special. It should have been nurtured until they put it in an essay. Then you could frame it on your wall for all your friends to gather around and laugh at. Not necessarily something they said, but my friend was in an online course and they had to write a simple paragraph about themselves as a first assignment. Someone got caught plagiarizing. You have been visited by the party pug. He just wants you to celebrate with him. Comment woohoo to celebrate with the party pug. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.